Thank you for joining us to listen to our referendum presentation. By the end of this presentation, we hope you will have an increased awareness and accurate information regarding our referendum, a clear understanding of our operating levy request, why it is needed, and how the operating levy will help our schools remain strong, and a clear understanding where to seek additional information and direct your questions. Eastern Carver County Schools prides itself on delivering a high-quality educational experience for our students, both inside and outside of the classroom, and we have much to be proud of. We continue to maintain strong graduation rates at our high schools. Across the district, the number of graduating seniors was 92.3%, which is significantly higher than the state average of 83.9%. We had 5 perfect scores on the ACT college entrance exam, and in 2020, our district had 9 advanced placement scholars. Our students have won state championships in athletics and activities that include the state football championship in 2019, the girls basketball state championship in 2021, and being recognized by the Star Tribune as the Girls Team of the Year. We have also won state championships in speech and debate, in addition to numerous state qualifiers in music-related activities. Eastern Carver County Schools has a high caliber of teachers and leaders that are committed to doing the best for all students. There are so many reasons for you to be proud of our schools. We are proud of them too, and honored to serve communities that have consistently stepped up to support their public schools. We know when schools are strong, our communities are strong. Our community has been recognized in a number of ways. Carver County has been ranked the happiest and healthiest county in the state. Our residents are highly educated, and we also have the fastest growing population. Our community continues to invest in our schools, and our schools have invested in the community. We have delivered on the community's investment in past referendums by building new facilities to support students in their academic and extracurricular activities. These are not just district resources, but community resources, and we are proud partners with our community and share these valuable assets. Several local parks and green spaces were designed as partnerships between our schools and community that include the fields and playgrounds at Clover Ridge, Victoria, and Chanhassen Elementary Schools. Eastern Carver County Schools may be comprised of 4 cities. We are one large community and we show up for each other. We are strong because our communities are strong, and we care for and invest in each other. Our communities care about our schools and value the connections between strong schools and strong communities. That support is reflected in our community surveys, which consistently show that residents and parents alike believe our students receive a high-quality education from their teachers. Survey results from the April 2021 survey demonstrated 94% of parents agree the community receives a good value from its investment in local schools. 89% of parents rate the quality of Eastern Carver County schools as excellent or good, and 91% trust the school board and district administration to do what is right for our students. These results also set us apart from other districts because they are better than average from school districts in the metro area.
Part of what makes our schools strong, as well as maintains our strong partnerships with our communities, is that the school districts takes our responsibility as stewards of public dollars seriously. We have been recognized for our budgeting process for many years by state and national organizations. In fact, since the 2017-18 fiscal year, our school district has received the Meritorious Budget Award from the Association of School Business Officials International. We are only one of 3 districts in the state to receive this recognition. The district has also received the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting every year since 2011. We have worked hard to do responsible budget planning with staff and the school board. Budget cuts totaling nearly $10 million in the 10 years prior to the 2019 referendum. We are grateful for the community's support in passing the technology and security levy, first in 2013 and then again in 2019. Thanks to that investment, we were well positioned to make sure our staff and our students had access to the resources they need to continue to learn in a global pandemic. Along with sound financial management, we take pride in ensuring that we keep as many dollars in the classroom as possible. This graphic illustrates how we spend our operating funds. You can see in the green on the left-hand side that 72 cents of every dollar goes directly to instruction and instructional support. An additional 10 cents, as shown in the blue, of every dollar provides additional student supports. So with that, 82 cents of every dollar from our operating fund goes directly to students. The district has done significant cost containment to stretch every dollar as far as we can. As I mentioned earlier, cutting over $10 million from the budget over the 10 years prior to the 2019 referendum. Even with the district's diligent efforts at responsible budgeting and keeping costs low, there continues to be external factors that put pressure on our budget. It is important to know that approximately 70% of school funds come from the state of Minnesota. The remaining 30% comes from a combination of federal funding, local property taxes, and a small amount from other interest and fees. It's also important to know that the state funding has not kept up with inflation for more than 15 years. If it had, we, Eastern Carver County Schools, would have received almost $5 million in additional funding last year alone. You can see from the chart that the per pupil formula adjusted for inflation would have been $7,070 last year, rather than the $6,567 that school districts received. In addition, the school district spends around $8.7 million in unfunded mandates from the federal government that they are not fully funding. The past few years have challenged our school district in unprecedented and painful ways, and those challenges have informed the school board's decision to pursue an operating referendum this November. During those years, the district and the school board did everything that they could to keep the cuts out of the classroom. This effort was to ensure that we kept our fund balance above the school board policy of 5%. Now, before we go any further, I want to make sure that all of us understand what fund balance is, because you will hear a lot of information related to our fund balance percentage and the school board's policy around fund balance. Fund balance in its basic form is the amount of financial resources, usually calculated at the end of the year, that are not obligated to any other area or project that a school district could utilize in the event of an unforeseen financial circumstance or crisis. The school board policy for Eastern Carver County Schools requires that we maintain at least a 5% fund balance, which is 5% of the total expenditures for the year. This would ensure that our district could withstand any unforeseen circumstance or situation, similar to what we experienced the last 3 years of a global pandemic. The failure of the operating referendum in 2019 resulted in significant budget cuts, over $9 million in just the last 2 years, in addition to the $10 million that had been cut in the 10 years preceding that referendum. The amount needed to be cut in the last 2 years meant that the district could no longer avoid substantial impacts to classrooms, resulting in the loss of valued staff across the district, reduced opportunities for our students, and increased class sizes at the elementary level. The COVID-19 pandemic presented its own set of challenges, and while we are very grateful for the one-time federal pandemic relief funding, these were designated oftentimes for very specific purposes, and they cannot be used to fill our revenue gaps. In addition, these funds were allocated to school districts based on the demographics of the students, particularly their level of financial need in each school district. Therefore, there ended up being wide gaps in the amount of funds that individual school districts received. And unfortunately, Eastern Carver County Schools was at the low end of what we were allocated. Revenue gaps like the unexpected loss of enrollment that happened in the fall of 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic were also significant. While these were not unique to Eastern Carver County Schools, but experienced by public school districts across the state and across the country, the loss of 300 plus students had a substantial impact on our budget this past year. And while we expect that our enrollment will continue to grow because of the extensive growth that is happening in single-family homes across the district, it will take time to fully recover from that drop in students. Despite all of that, our district continues to deliver a strong academic experience in the classroom and provides amazing opportunities for our students outside the classroom. But without additional funding, we cannot ensure that we are continuing to deliver on that commitment to our students and to our families in the manner that they deserve and that all of us expect. We want to continue to build on our past success while also ensuring our financial stability and growing strong schools that are ready for our future challenges. So with all of that said, the school board has approved one question to be placed on the ballot on November 2nd to address the need for operating revenue. If approved, this 10-year levy would provide an increase in operating revenue of $550 per pupil, which equates to approximately $5.2 million of additional revenue in the first year. The tax impact on the average homeowner would be around $20 per month based on a $375,000 home, or $242 per year. It's important to point out that the school board originally reviewed a $650 per pupil referendum based on the significant cuts that were projected for the upcoming years, as well as our long-range financial projection. However, because of the additional funds that were provided from the state at the end of the legislative session in June, our board went with a more conservative ask of $550 to make sure that we are asking for what we really need to sustain our schools and our commitment to our students. If approved, the operating levy would provide the resources in 4 different categories for our school district. The first category, these resources would restore some of the most challenging reductions that occurred after the failure of the 2019 referendum. Items such as lower class sizes at the elementary level by 1.5 students, expanding our student voice and choice by adding virtual options for our secondary students to access electives in the new 6-period day. An example would be a 0 hour at the high school. We could roll back some of the increases on athletics and our activity fees. The second category is these additional resources would help us to sustain our investments that we've made in supporting our students in new and innovative ways during the global pandemic. Things like targeted services, our academic interventions, supporting our accelerated learning. These funds would also allow us to protect our current level of services and supports for our students by preventing future cuts to programs and services, things like 5th grade band, gifted and talented programming, more increased class sizes at the elementary level as well as the secondary level, as well as increased school bus walk zones for transportation. Finally, approval of this operating levy would allow our school district to invest. First, to develop a healthy and sustainable reserve to ensure we have the resources necessary to protect our classrooms for cuts due to unforeseen circumstances in the future. These funds would also allow us to invest in the future of our district. Our school district is currently involved in a strategic planning process, which will lay out priorities for our district in the years ahead. And this increase in per pupil funding would ensure that we are able to realize those priorities, which will be formulated with multiple rounds of feedback from parents, students, staff, and community members. While it is important for our community to understand how we will use these funds, it is equally important for all of us to understand what will happen if the operating levy is not successful. While we are grateful for the state funding this year that did exceed our expectations, it unfortunately doesn't mean that our district's financial picture has substantially improved. What it did allow us to do, as I mentioned earlier, is to make a more conservative ask of our community, truly asking only for what is needed. With our most updated financial projection, including that recent funding increase from the legislature, our fund balance would still dip below the 5% fund balance policy within 3 years. With that in mind, we would look at budget cuts in future years, even before that time, to protect the fund balance and to keep it within that 5% fund balance policy. And while we can't say for certain which budget cuts would take place, the list of possible cuts contain the range of possibilities that I mentioned in our last slides, including impacting our 5th grade band, reducing gifted and talented services, increasing our class sizes at both the elementary and the secondary level, as well as increasing bus walk zones. And finally, given all of that, it would be necessary for the district to once again return to taxpayers in a future election cycle to ask for additional funding. While each school district's financial situation varies, it is important for our community to understand how we compare to other communities' investments in their schools. Eastern Carver County has historically benchmarked ourselves against 13 other districts that are about the same size and demographic makeup of our school district. As you can see in the dark blue, we are currently in the lower half of our benchmark districts in comparable local funding at $980 per pupil. If the operating referendum is successful on November 2nd, we would move closer to the middle of our comparable districts, right behind Eden Prairie Schools at $1,530 per pupil. If the referendum passes, this chart shows what the impact would be for our homeowners. In Eastern Carver County Schools, the median home price is right around $375,000, which, as you can see, would mean a $20 per month increase. We also have a very helpful property tax calculator on our school district's referendum website, so you can find the cost for your home or for your commercial property. One thing to keep in mind, as was mentioned earlier in the presentation, is that our community continues to grow, and thus our tax base continues to grow. Because of that, the actual tax impact for homeowners has historically actually decreased over time. This is a result of the levy being spread out across more properties in the district. If our community that makes up our school district continues to grow as we anticipated, the estimated tax impact of this operating levy will likely decrease in subsequent years.
As a reminder, you will see one question on the ballot on November 2nd, asking for an increase of $550 per student to continue delivering the caliber of education our community expects and deserves. You have the option to vote early by mail, which is absentee voting, or voting early in person at the Carver County Government Center. We recommend voting early as it is very quick and easy. If you plan to vote on November 2nd, please note we only have 4 in-person locations this election, so your voting location may be different than it is during other elections. If you're looking for more information on the referendum or have questions, these district resources can help you get answers. Please visit www.eccsvote.org, or you can certainly email us, or we also have people waiting to have a conversation with you at the following number, 952-556-6107. We thank you for listening to our referendum presentation and hope you have gained an increased awareness about our referendum, understand our operating levy request and why it is needed, and how the operating levy will help our students remain strong, and understand where to seek additional information and direct your questions. Thank you.